Hey everybody, Elkrex here, just doing a little run through of the Warhammer Armies Undead book from 4th edition. I broke this little bugger out tonight just to go do a run through, just show you what's in it. In case you've never seen one of these before, you know, a lot of the individuals that are on my channel, that all my subscribers, there's a few of you that have been around since the 3rd and 4th edition fantasy game. But if you haven't, here's just a little run through of the book. I'm kind of skipping through the front here because, well, pertinent information in the front that has my name and stuff on it. I can't show that. So there we got the table of contents in there with everything. Yeah, lots of hours just going through and reading this. You have the introduction, a little bit of history, talking about zombies and carrion vampires, mummies. Yes, mummies. This is before the Tomb Kings. So you had everything that was now in the Tomb Kings is in this book. Beforehand, you had the Land of the Dead. So basically, you go through here. I can't even pronounce Nagash. Basically, that's what it ends up becoming. And we're talking about Nagash in here. Then you have the grand map. There's a land. It's like right here. Bretonia. Here you have the Empire, Keslev. The Northern Waste, Norsica. This is where all the mostly chaos stuff come from. Blasted Lands. We got lots of orcs and stuff through this range. Badlands. Then down here we have the Land of the Dead. This is basically where the Tomb Kings and stuff are all through this zone right here. So this is basically most of the undead. But you do have undead are part of the Empire. Some of the cities, and you have your liches and stuff like that. Your necromancers will raise an army out of all that whole area. So it's pretty cool. And you have the Plain of Dead. Basically, it's talking about everything I just showed you in the book. And that little map. Everything. History of the undead. How it all became. Through dark magics. Then we got Nagash himself. The ugly spud. Lord of the Undead. As we know, he later becomes something pretty nasty. And they supersized him. Before, when in 3rd, 4th edition, he was just basically your standard size guy running around. Yeah. There we go. Necromancer Lich. Vampire Countess Sylvania. This Karsten. I think this Vampire Count. Right there. What's his name? He had some great artwork in this from back in the day. And it just keeps going through. Here we got the timeline when everything came to be. And here we start getting into the fun goodies and stuff. Now here's what I remember going to the like a Kinko's or someplace like that, Office Max, and go and make a copy of this. Permission to photocopy for personal use. Yes, you could go around and make a copy of this, and you had to go in with your belt pins and stuff and fill it all in and make it nice for you can put it in your army. So you end up with something like that. So yeah, it didn't take much. The armies back then, everything cost more when it come to all the different units and stuff in the game. But you didn't need a lot, like the zombie regiment. We had the undead. different. The Wraiths, Undead Cavalry, Horsemen, Chariots, Wraiths. And we have, and here we got the High Elf army versus a small little Undead army. And we got, this is basically the Tomb Kings starting to show up. Before, it's like when you'd go to the store, you'd see a blister and you just start grabbing. You got random stuff in every one, so you weren't sure, unless you've spent time looking at it, you weren't sure which one you're going to get. The Mummies, cool. I have a whole bunch of Mummies. I had a large force of Mummies. Because they were pretty hard hitting. They were basically the shock troops of the day. And then, I can't remember, was it in 6th edition they discontinued them? They were no longer after 6th edition. I think it was only 4th and 5th you could get Mummies. They basically turned them into, when the Tomb Kings, it became, I think, the Guard or whatever, say, Tomb Guard or something like that. And we have spells. Basically, those cards I showed in one of my previous videos. These are the cards. So when the expansion came out, then you had all these extra cards that were in there. And let's see, Dieter Hellsnick Knight, Doom Lord of Middenheim. Cool model. Never did get that model. Never picked it up. It was like pretty expensive at the time. And I was like, man, that's a pretty expensive model for what you have to throw on the board. And I was like, man, am I willing to spend that kind of money to pick up a model that very seldom sees itself on the board? So I didn't do it. And they have a little insert here. Revenge of the Doom Lord is kind of like a little, basically stuff that you would see in the White Dwarf. They tossed in there as like a little battle report right inside the codex. So, our army book. Undead battle tactics. They give you a little bit of how to do stuff. Then you have your undead roster sheet. Basically, what would cost you. And then an Empire. So basically, this is their, for the battle report, what was in the battle. They just tell you right there. So all the cost, and we have the Undead Bestiary. Special rules. No march rules. They're dead. They're just shuffling along. You can't go fast with these guys. Alright, then we have your, basically, here's your, you have to have somebody, it's typically, you got to have a necromancer or a lich commanding. Like the lich was immune to psychology. Like, run. Not in our hour of victory, because if we die, we can raise an army. If they die, we raise an army. So why do we care? We're already dead. So everybody dies eventually and is willing to join the armies of the undead. That's all I look at it. And you can always have a vampire lord, or count, depending on the size. They're pretty nasty. So you could always have. So basically, your lords were either a necromancer, lich, or a vampire. And then you start throwing in your basic contingents. You always had to have some skeleton steed. So basically, you're always going to have some type of group that was your core of your army. And so you're looking at, this is your core. A lot of times you'd have either ghouls or zombies, brazen, yeah. And then the Carrion Riders. Those are pretty cool. I use a few of these in my army. Into psychology, they fly. So basically, they were good to getting back. you have a small unit of these guys, and you could always run back, fly them over everybody, and then hit the rear units, like take out their war machines and stuff like that were in the way, causing havoc. Ghosts. I didn't use ghosts all that much. Whites, I did. Wraiths, yeah. Zombie dragon. Can't go to war without a zombie dragon. So they were pretty good, zombie dragons. Pestilent breath. They were, it's like bad breath, and they need Mentos or something to take care of that. They cause terror. And eventually they came out with their own zombie dragon, and it was pretty big. Throw your lich on top, your lord. Undead Chariots. I don't know. I think I still got some Undead Chariots hidden around someplace. That'll work. And the Screaming Skull Catapult. That was your mainstay when it comes to hitting far out there. Basically a stone thrower with special rules. Cause fear. Immune to psychology. So basically, any unit that was hit suffers one or more wounds from a shooting attack by a Screaming Skull Catapult must take a panic test. If the unit fails the test, it will flee immediately, exactly if it had been broken in hand-to-hand combat or decide to flee from a charge. So that was, I think I gave the story where in the very first turn, my Screaming Skulls Catapult hit the enemy and made them break a bunch of units, and then they all ran off the board, and the next thing you know, it was like the whole army just, due to psychology, seeing the entire orc army leave. It was like, well, you want to reset and go get? That was a quick game. Undead Magic, so basically those cards that I showed you in the previous, should break those out and show you. Maybe that's what I should do in the next video, is break out all the Undead Magic cards and stuff and show. Yeah, they're all through here. Good stuff. Army list. There we go. Alright, the maximum number magic items you could have, depending on the size of your, it's like 1, 2, 4. Then undead, it'll tell you how many you could have for magic items. Regiments, tells you the size of your army. Basically, I think it was like 40%. So the percentages, they had it all out in the main rule book, telling you what you could, how much you could build your army. There we go. Army selection. Up to 50% of your army value can be, so if you had 2,000 point, you could have 1,000 point of characters. So yeah, basically 25% could be regiment, 25% of it could be war machines, monsters 25, and allies 25. Up to, so typically this was 25% plus, so minimum was 25%. I typically would always cap myself trying to put around 350 for characters, you know, start my base out, and I would usually went around 50% with up to 50% with my regiment. So you're looking at 75% of your stuff, and then you have war machines and some monsters tossed in and balanced it out. And it didn't take too long to make an army out of everybody. And you can see right here, a lich is 350 points. So necromancer lords 450, and that's not even counting any of your equipment added on. So yeah, you could easily blow through 500 points just on your general, and you're not even counting anything else. And then you start going with your battle standard. You know, you definitely need a army battle standard. And it's like to keep everybody in line and go for, you know, a place to sit around. And obviously you needed a couple of heroes in the group. Usually I typically went with a mummy and a vampire. because, you know, vampires make great tossing them out there to, yeah, if you got an enemy general, because vampires are pretty quick. They went fast, they're strong, hard hitting, and then smash in and take out, you know, the enemy leader types. And then you use your necromancers and stuff. You have some low level ones, just, you know, we're talking low level ones with some minor spells here tossed out to keep units to where you want them. You ride and die kind of guys. And you got your basic bread. So you're looking here. Horsemen are 18. Skeleton warriors were 8 plus, you know, whatever options you toss on them. If you start throwing in, you know, typically skeleton archers and stuff like that, you could have some, but, you know, you start talking around 10 points plus for something that has a ballistic skill that and weapon skill that really sucks. So they're just cannon fodder. So you really didn't need too much. You let the big hitters do a lot of the work for you. And ghouls were cheap. They're the cannon fodder. Zombies were really your cheap cannon fodder to go out there and just bring something up. You know, they were just blocking forces while you let your... Basically, it was like Hero Hammer at the time. You're letting your necromancers, your lords, your vampires do all the heavy work, along with let your artillery start trying to break units. And here we're talking about mummies, 45 points piece, but they were pretty good. Yeah, so your weapon skill wasn't all that great, but here we're talking about strength and toughness. It was hard for them to do anything to them. And so you're looking at two-handed weapons with armor. Yeah, you're looking around 50 points a piece. You know, we're talking some serious coinage going into them. So a 10-man unit of mummies, you're talking about 500 points right there. Then you throw in some flying Carrion Riders, which I usually had 3. That was my standard go-to. Fly around and get in there and start causing havoc. And a few wraiths tossed in for little wonders. Here we go. When I'm talking about, I would go over a Screaming Skull Catapult versus the Undead Chariots. It's probably, I think I got a couple of them just because I bought them. But I usually would prefer the Screaming Skull Catapults over Chariots when it comes to war machines. And just because, you know, they can't hit the broadside of a barn typically, but if you got the old, if you had 2 of them, one of them is going to hit the target, do some damage, and, you know, the damage was pretty good. So strength was usually squished anything they hit, and then you do D3 wounds. So that's pretty good. Then monsters, 500 points for a zombie dragon. Yeah, but heck, it does hard work. My preferred go-to monsters were flying chimeras. I usually had 2 of them. And let's see, giant spiders. Okay, the giant. Where's the giant? Should have these. Did I miss it? Giant scorpion, manicore, giant spider, hydra, griffin, chimera, carrion, mummies, race, ghost. Maybe I'm thinking Tomb King one. Maybe I have a zombie, or not I got a skeleton giant I use. And here you get your special characters. And you start talking some serious points. Like Nagash by himself, 400 plus. You start adding stuff up. Yeah, he's a major point sink. You're talking a 3,000 point game typically. You could bring him in respectively then, but Karstein, here we go. Manfred von Karstein, that was what I was thinking of. Nasty guy. Archon the Black. Okay, I've run him a few times in games. Henrik Himmler. Corral the Undead Lord. Might have been. Yeah, he was usually. I had him running around as part of a mummy in it. Etc. Yeah, that was who I used back in the day. Is the Tomb King of Khmer. That was who my mummy giant was on the battlefield, carrying a big giant leg. And back in the back, you have your different stuff. Always have to have the advertising for what you don't have, you need to buy more of. And then you have your manticores, ghouls. You got your manicore right, that he's riding on. Undead, you got zombies, lots of zombies. I usually typically use troops, like my Empire troops is my zombies, just because, hey, they're freshly dead. You just got raised up from the last combat, and we're putting them in the line. And I guess got pretty much all of the mummies that you can have. A few wraiths, wights, vampire lords, necromancers. I think I got a couple ghosts. And you got your skeleton command. Carrion. Yep, there you go. And chariots. All that fancy. Archon the Black was that. His old move chariot that he had. And you got your horse calf. And back here you got your typical Warhammer Armies advertisement for all the other army books. I have all these. I can't find my high elf, my wood elf, and my chaos dwarf books. I got all the other ones. I had every single book. I can't find those three. So it makes me wonder what happened to them. I maybe have loaned them out and never got them back. Or when I had the big flood in my basement, I'm hoping they didn't get destroyed. So, but that's the back. That's just a run through of the Undead Armies book supplement. It's kind of a fun little deal. It's fun. Just to run through everything, just to see how everything is. Hope you guys like it. It's a little fun thing. Now, if anybody's been around that long, towards the end, if anybody wants to see these books, which are the rule books, let me know down below, and maybe I'll do a for the bestiary and in the rule book from the 4th edition box set. So if you want to see those, put it down below if you made it this far towards the end, and I will talk with y'all later. Cranks out.